Howdy, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second Campus Sustainability Month talk. Welcome to Campus Sustainability Month. If this is your first event, we have a bunch of other fun events for y'all to get involved with us in. But this specifically is where our interns get together. They pick a topic within sustainability that they're specifically interested in, research it, and prepare it for us to be able to learn about a new topic. So we're super excited that you're here and you'll get to learn with us. Be sure to sign in using the QR code in the top right corner. That's just for us to gauge who's here and how to best interact with everyone on campus. So today we're going to be getting a presentation from Kaylin and Logan on Is Climate Change Making Us Sicker? So the question that we're getting at today is, as the planet gets warmer and natural disasters occur more frequently with greater intensity, are disease outbreaks becoming more common? So this question will be answered today during their presentation. A bit of space setting for today's Zoom. I'll be recording, so if you're uncomfortable with that, want to turn off your camera, please feel free to. We record it so that people who weren't able to join us can tune in on the YouTube later. So if you have any friends that weren't able to make it, or if you wanted to review it later, feel free to check out our YouTube and rewatch it. Your friends are also able to get 1 to 2 code words for the giveaway via the YouTube. But today you'll get 5 for joining us live. We also have a live transcript, so if you want to add those captions on to follow along better, you can do that. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end where you can ask questions about the presentation or general questions about the office. So you can pop those in the chat and we'll save those for post-presentation, or you're welcome to hold on to them and wait until the Q&A to ask. So a little bit of a rundown on how our giveaway looks. So one code word is equivalent to one entry within the presentation. So we'll have a code word that'll pop up on a slide, or a presenter will say it, or it'll be written in the chat. So be sure to be paying attention so you can get those code words. You'll keep track of them for the entire month and then submit them in one email to sustainability@tamu.edu by November 2nd. And all the prize details, rules, and entry options are at that link below, so definitely check it out. There are a lot more ways to get involved, including this presentation and our next presentation on October 29th. There's lots of fun events to get to participate in, as well as some ways to participate virtually via social media. So definitely check that out to maximize your chances of winning. Here's a rundown of all the prizes that you'll have a chance to choose from. If you win, one person will win the tier 1 prize, 2 people will win the tier 2 prize, and 5 people will earn the tier 3 prize. Lots of really amazing prizes, all somehow sustainability oriented to get you outside or to reduce your waste or to pick up more sustainable practices. The speakers are very popular, the tuition scholarship's very popular, so is the Stanley Tumbler. I think there are a lot of great prizes here that encompass what anyone would want to buy when going to REI or going shopping for a new hobby. So lots of great prizes there. If you weren't able to make it on for our last talk, you can still watch it on YouTube. Rivers and Rights, Indigenous Water Rights and Spiritual Resilience, presented by Bailey, Faye, and Irissa. This discussion dives into historical Indigenous cultural practices and current disparities in resource rights. Indigenous communities played a significant role in global history, yet lack representation and authorization in research and governance, even on their ancestral lands. Join us as we explore the importance of Indigenous stewardship and inclusion in climate initiatives. And coming up next on October 29th at 10:30 a.m., The Missing Piece, Key Conservation Knowledge Lies Within Indigenous Languages. This is presented by Hester and Cameron. So English is the dominant language of research. The wealth of wisdom and ecological understanding embedded in Indigenous languages are often lost in translation, where it might have otherwise been pivotal towards climate change innovations. This discussion will highlight the importance of preserving native languages that have passed down centuries of knowledge about the natural world. So definitely tune in. Very interesting topics that we'll be discussing this Campus Sustainability Month. And if you're wanting to get involved in the office in this capacity, giving presentations for the campus community on what you're specifically interested in, as well as engaging with campus and educating about sustainability in so many other ways, definitely apply to our internship applications. They're due on November 10th. There's 8 internships available every semester on campus. We encourage all majors to apply. Sustainability is an interdisciplinary topic, and we want to welcome all viewpoints and opinions when it comes to the climate change crisis and how we can better navigate it with all our skill sets put onto the table. It's only open to undergraduate students and definitely apply. It's a really wonderful program and lots of fun. So thank you again for joining us today. Be sure to get involved with us in all the other ways that we have available this Campus Sustainability Month, but we're happy to be celebrating with you today. And now I'm going to pass it over to our presenters.
Howdy, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation. Today, we'll be talking about the relationship between climate change and the spread of infectious diseases. I'm Logan Pavlicek.
And I'm Kaylin Lujan.
The code words for Campus Sustainability Month prizes, as Caroline mentioned, will be scattered throughout and in the chat. You're also welcome to put any questions you have throughout the presentation in the chat, and we'll answer those all at the end.
So here is an overview of our presentation and some of the topics that we're going to be covering today. First, we're going to start off by establishing what we mean when we say climate change. Then we're going to explore the cascading effects and how this relates to disease. And then we will then we'll examine how it's directly impacting us and finally wrap it up with what we can do to combat the worsening impacts of climate change. So our first code word is going to be infectious. Starting off, most people have heard of climate change, but not everyone truly understands what it means. Climate change is a term used to describe long-term alterations in Earth's temperature, weather patterns, and natural systems. While our planet's climate has always changed over time, the speed and scale of current changes are mainly driven by human actions. A major cause of this shift is the rising concentration of greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. These gases are released into the atmosphere through activities like burning fossil fuels, clearing forests, and certain farming practices that we use. This process is known as the greenhouse effect. While it is natural and essential for life, an excessive amount of this leads to rising global temperatures and disrupts weather patterns. As a consequence of this, we are noticing rising global temperatures, melting ice caps, stronger storms, and dying ecosystems. These long-term changes have already started affecting humans, wildlife, and the environment. Understanding climate change is the first step we need to take as humans. It's also important to address some of the common misconceptions about climate change. A lot of people assume that it is just part of Earth's natural cycle and that our planet has always experienced periods of warming and cooling. Since that is true to some extent, um, but the changes we are witnessing today are occurring much faster than any natural cycle in the past. The sharp rise in global temperatures directly responds to the increase in greenhouse gases produced by human activity. This rapid change is not nature acting on its own, and it is being driven by humans. Um, Another widespread belief is that humans will simply adapt to when the time comes. While adaptation is necessary for us, it is not a complete solution. Communities around the world are already facing rising sea levels, more extreme weather, and heat waves that threaten lives and livelihoods. Waiting until these impacts worsen will only make them more difficult and costly to manage. Taking action now to reduce emissions and prepare for the future challenges is far more effective than reacting later. It is also often thought that renewable energy is too expensive or unrealistic. This may have been true decades ago, but that is no longer the case. Today, solar and wind power are among the most affordable and accessible energy sources. So the cost of solar and wind energy have actually declined thanks to technological process. So from 2010 to 2020, solar and wind project costs dropped by 85%, making them cheaper than fossil fuels in many regions over their lifetime. They continue to create jobs and strengthen local economies as well. By understanding these challenges and these misconceptions, we can focus on the real solution that protect both people and the planet for generations to come.
So the Cambridge Dictionary defines cascading effects as a situation when an action, event, or decision has an effect on a few people or things, which then causes it to have an effect on more people or things, and so on until many people or things are affected. A good way to visualize this is like a complicated domino effect where one action causes so many consequent reactions to where it eventually reaches areas it wouldn't have been able to directly impact. So, how can we apply this concept to climate change? Climate change is a very large issue. It affects the world on a planetary scale. A lot of times it feels inevitable and like there aren't direct impacts in our lives. This is where it becomes useful to apply a cascading effect premise to the broader issue. While rising temperatures in the equatorial region might not yet affect you directly, it affects the agriculture in the region, which may in turn affect the food available to you. There are many ways climate change can have a direct impact on your life. These cascading effects are the reason a holistic approach to the climate crisis is so important. Climate change affects the environment, yes, but also our economy and society. From here, we'll be talking about the different ways cascading effects from climate change are impacting public health.
As global temperatures continue to rise, the living ranges of many species are shifting, especially for insects like mosquitoes. Warmer conditions are making it more possible for them to survive and reproduce in places that were once too cold for them to live. Because of this, disease-carrying species, often called vectors, are spreading farther north and south from the equator. Mosquitoes that transmit illnesses such as the dengue outbreak, malaria, and Zika are now thriving in areas that haven't experienced these diseases before. Warmer weather, higher humidity, and changing rainfall patterns create ideal environments for mosquitoes to breed and spread. Regions that once had little concern for mosquito-borne diseases are beginning to face new health risks as these insects expand into new territory. It's not only rising temperature that influences this change. Rainfall and drought also play major roles. Heavier rainfall can leave behind pools of standing water, which are perfect breeding spots for mosquitoes. During dry periods, people often store water in open containers, which also becomes mosquito habitats. These combined factors make it easier for vectors to survive and spread disease in a wider range of environments. This expansion no longer affects only tropical areas. In recent years, diseases like dengue and Nile virus have been reported in regions that were once considered too cold for mosquitoes to thrive. As this trend continues, public health systems around the world are being forced to adapt and prepare for new outbreaks in places that have never faced them before.
As to expand on that, as a case study, we're going to talk a little bit more about the ongoing dengue outbreak. So, dengue is a viral infection transmitted to humans by mosquitoes. While the virus can be expressed asymptomatically or with only mild symptoms, dengue can also be severe and fatalities are not unheard of. There have been ongoing dengue outbreaks globally since 2024, with cases reported throughout the Americas and the Caribbean. The WHO notes that almost half the world's population is at risk of dengue infection due to the expanding habitat of mosquitoes that we discussed before. As the equatorial region grows, mosquitoes are able to venture further north and south, increasing their ability to spread disease. The disease is even spreading to regions in Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean, which historically have not experienced dengue. Dengue is the most common mosquito-borne disease in the world, and while most cases are mild, other more severe diseases spread by mosquitoes like malaria and Zika are also seeing an increased infection rate. As temperatures rise, pathogens are adapting to warmer climates, increasing their fitness to infect human hosts. In ecology, fitness refers to an organism's relative ability to successfully survive and reproduce. A classic case study of this is peppered moths. Before the Industrial Revolution, light-colored moths were better camouflaged on birch trees, leading to higher survival rates. But after the Industrial Revolution caused those birch trees to be covered in dark soot, the darker colored moths were more successful. The color of the moth isn't an inherent advantage, but rather relative to their environment. With a warming climate, fungi in particular are becoming better able to survive inside the human body. Additionally, the past few decades have seen increased rates of reemerging infectious diseases, namely in African regions. Diseases like Ebola and cholera are of significant concern. Warmer temperatures are directly contributing to pathogen fitness and reemergence.
So, moving on to rising global temperatures and natural disasters and war. So, since rising global temperatures are making natural disasters more frequent and severe, it's posing a serious risk to human health. Hurricanes, floods, and wildfires, as well as droughts, are intensifying, and their impacts go beyond just damaging homes and infrastructure. These events also create environments that allow diseases to spread more easily, including contaminated water and ideal breeding sites for mosquitoes. War and conflict can make these risks even worse by altering the environment. Destruction from bombings, deforestation, and damaged infrastructure can create standing water, debris, and unsanitary conditions that serve as even more breeding grounds for pathogens. Displaced populations may be forced to live in overcrowded or compromised areas, which combined with environmental disruption, increases the likelihood of infectious disease outbreaks. When natural disaster strikes in regions affected by conflict, these environmental changes amplify the risk and scale of disease spread. Understanding the combined effects of climate change, natural disasters, and environmental impacts of war highlight why it's critical to address these changes to protect human health.
As a case study on natural disasters, we're going to be talking about Hurricane Harvey. So, in August of 2017, Hurricane Harvey made landfall in Texas. A Category 4 hurricane, Harvey made landfall 3 times in 6 days, arguably the most disastrous hurricane the United States had seen since Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Harvey dumped 27 trillion gallons of water over Texas, caused $125 billion worth of damage, completely flooded a third of Houston, which caused the city to temporarily sink 2 centimeters from the weight of the water, and directly claimed 89 lives. And these are just the direct impacts during the disaster. Tens of thousands of people were displaced, homes were lost, and long-term hazards such as mold was left in its wake. If you were in Texas at the time, chances are you have a Hurricane Harvey story. Schools closing, checking on family, watching the water rise, and hoping it wouldn't reach your home. Harvey was a disaster in every sense of the word. And while hurricanes will occur with or without hurricane human-driven climate change, a later study found that without climate change, Hurricane Harvey may have flooded half the number of homes in Houston that it did. This is just one example of a natural disaster clearly worsened by a changing climate and the conditions it leaves behind that can increase disease transmission. Now, how is all of this impacting us directly? As Texans, and as previously discussed, we're all very familiar with hurricanes. These natural disasters are something we've become used to, even as they increase in frequency and severity. As previously mentioned, 2017's Hurricane Harvey had a devastating impact on Texas and was likely fueled by human-driven climate change. More recently, Hurricane Beryl was especially devastating, both in Texas and across islands in the Caribbean. And as we also discussed earlier, the aftermath of these natural disasters can lead to even more disastrous outbreaks and loss of life. In addition, warmer temperatures lead to worsened air quality. A recent study conducted at Texas A&M shows correlation between hotter weather and elevated ground level ozone. Even just the heat itself causes health concerns. In 2023, more than 300 Texans died from heat-related illnesses, the most since the Texas Department of State Health Services started tracking these deaths in 1989. Climate change even has a potential impact on the spread of diseases like COVID. There's evidence that warmer temperatures and higher humidity favor COVID spread and transmission, especially in more populated areas. All of these are examples of how climate change has direct impacts on all of us in Texas. The warmer weather, the natural disasters, these are shared experiences and proof of the severity of the climate crisis. We've lost many, many people to illnesses related to a warming planet, and things will continue to get worse unless we work together to mitigate climate change.
So, what can each of us do to help fight climate change and protect public health? Even small changes can add up. We can reduce our personal impact by using less energy, walking, biking, or taking public transport instead of driving. So, choosing renewable energy and supporting clean energy and initiatives also help. Simple actions like cutting down on waste, recycling, and conserving water make a difference too, because they reduce conditions where disease can spread. By taking these steps and inspiring others to do the same, we can work toward a safer and healthier future for our communities.
The climate crisis impacts not only weather patterns, but has cascading effects with disastrous impacts on public health. Disease vectors, pathogen fitness, and natural disaster aftermath are all affected by a changing climate. These are real impacts felt by everyone, including all of us. In order to face the climate crisis's cascading effects impacting public health, we must work together to keep each other healthy and safe. Thank you so much for your attention. We have our references coming up. Here are all our references. We're also going to be sending them out in a follow-up email if you want to read any more on it. And yeah, we have our final code word here, which is outbreak. The rest of them are in the chat. And finally, we'll be answering any questions. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them, either about our presentation or about the office and the internship program.
First question, what surprised you most about your research?
For me, I think it was how much literature there was about this. Like, for other things that we've researched here, that's kind of more of a niche topic. And while this is kind of niche, there's a ton of evidence supporting, I guess, just how all of these things are related. But it's something that a lot of people still don't really think about because it's not really intuitive. Because when you think of the environment and carbon emissions, you don't really think of disease outbreaks. So I think it was really interesting how much research was available for this topic.
I would say what surprised me the most was not only was it like global warming that and rising temperatures that had a main effect on the spread of disease like we had originally thought about, but also all the natural disasters as well, and even all the war conflicts that are contributing to that spread of disease, as I think that's what surprised me the most.
Next question, what do you recommend for other college students at A&M to do specifically to take action?
I think it's really important just to get involved with the community. I think public health is kind of something that everyone has to pitch into to take care of. So just being sure to be careful when you're sick, consider other people around you when you're thinking about things. And that's for health specifically, but in general, for sustainability, I think it's just really important to make an effort, whatever that looks like for you, because everyone kind of has a different situation and different things that they're able to do. So I think just figuring out what that is for you and remembering that we're all in it together. So it's not up to you alone to fix climate because that's not possible. It's really a group effort and building community is really important for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think building off of that, just making sure that you're making conscious choices with whether it's like the food you're buying, how you're disposing of empty products that you have. I know that like recycling is kind of hard here in like the Bryan and College Station area, but there are some recycling like drop-off stations that are available and stuff, and just monitoring maybe like even your food waste, something as simple as that. It's easy for especially college students to take action that way.
I actually have a question. So what inspired y'all to create this presentation?
I think it was for me, it was kind of about how I guess not obvious it was. Like when you start thinking about it, it's like, well, if mosquitoes are going further than they have before, then of course disease outbreaks will follow. So I think it was just kind of about how once you make that connection, you sort of see a lot more once you start like thinking about topics that you want to share with other people. So I think a big part of that for me was kind of how once you started thinking about it, you saw all of these connections and those cascading effects we talked about, and how even things that like as far removed from the environment that you would think like things like war, actually climate change is impacting and worsening the aftermath of.
I think for me, just like kind of when we were brainstorming, the whole idea is like, what should we do for our talk and everything? And then finding the article about how rising temperatures have increased the spread of disease. Just like reading that, I was just kind of like drawn in to just read more about it because everything was pretty shocking. The more I read about the article, finding out how bad that the spread of disease is occurring due to rising temperatures and stuff. It was more just like a shocking factor that made me want to learn more about it.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, final question. If you had more time to present, what would you explore further?
I think going more in depth about specific case studies, because there have been so many like increasing natural disaster events and things, and looking specifically at those in the aftermath. And I think also something that would be interesting to explore further is kind of how we are currently handling all of that, because things like mold remediation after hurricanes is and cleanup and things like that are very important, and they're things we are making efforts and striving to do better now. So I think looking more into that, but I think we focus more on explaining the problem for this presentation, because from there you can kind of build off of it.
I think I would definitely have to agree with Logan, focusing more on the case studies and maybe more statistics on the spread of disease and like how it's been worsening over these past few decades and stuff, just focusing more on that.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming out. I learned so much from this presentation, so I'm really grateful that y'all are here and educating me on something I didn't really know that much about. So it was awesome. Thank you again to our presenters for a wonderful presentation, and thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see y'all again at some of our other Campus Sustainability Month talks and events and on social media. Bye, y'all.